All right, so we welcome the ContestForum panel. It's going to be moderated by Bob Wilson, N6 Tango Victor, and you all of you attendees that are out there on. Well, hold on. You stole my screen. Just a minute. I'll give it back to you in a second, I promise. Because I wanted to make a comment that the world is going to be hearing from some of the best CW operators on the planet. You guys collectively are amazing operators, but I wanted to let people know where you got your start, and it really started some time ago when you all learned how to operate in CW from these guys.
Shortwave, take it down, quick. What's it say? Ah, shut up. What'd that mean? You too?
Well, that's where they got their start, and the rest is history.
I worked those guys in the last contest.
So take it away, Bob Wilson. You're on stage.
And now, the 2021 International DX Convention presents the Visalia Group, an unrehearsed program presenting major contest issues of the day. Here's the moderator, Bob Wilson, N6 TV.
Issue 1, the assisted versus unassisted ice bucket challenge. In 2021, the rules of the CQWPX contest suddenly changed. For the first time, almost all entrants are permitted to use spotting assistance. Last year in the 2020 WPX, most of the single op entries claimed no assistance, 62% of the phone logs and 54% of the CW logs. Now the unassisted category has been completely eliminated from WPX, except for in entries in the classic overlay category, which has other restrictions such as 24 hours max and one radio only. In response, N6MJ and KI6RRN created, quote, the unassisted challenge to encourage the tradition of the single operator unassisted categories in the WPX contest. Unassisted operators were invited to submit logs as usual to the WPX sponsor, then upload a copy of their log to a new website, which would then rank them in the traditional fashion and award unassisted plaques to the winners. So what does this WPX rule change portend for other contests such as CQ worldwide? Some contests such as WAE and All Asian already allow spotting assistance in all categories, whereas others such as NAQP do not allow any single ops to use spotting assistance. Should contests such as NAQP add a new and separate assisted category, and what has been the response so far to the WPX unassisted challenge? I ask you, the man who finished first in WRTC Boston in 2014 and finished second in the worldwide, second in the world in the 2020 CQ Worldwide CW, making almost 11,000 QSOs from ZF1A, representing the great state of Southern California, Mr. Dan Craig, N6MJ.
Thanks, Bob. So as Bob said, me and Axel did create the unassisted challenge for WPX. We started that this year. We ended up having over 200 logs submitted to us for the sideband version, and we're hoping to have a little bit more action on CW as well. And the reason why that we ended up creating this unassisted challenge was, we're not big fans of combining the categories, and we kind of felt like there had to be an outlet for those of us that still wanted to continue to operate unassisted and have our scores compare just with the unassisted folks. So we had a really nice outpouring of support. Obviously not everyone is for it, and that's totally fine. I don't mind that there's some people that don't like it, but lots of people were supportive of it. We had lots of people wanting to sponsor the plaques and stuff, so I was very happy with the outturn with that. But I think that it's really important to keep the categories separate. It's a completely separate skill to operate assisted versus unassisted. one of the things that came up a lot when we first started talking about this was the fact that anybody could do operate assisted. Now, I don't believe that myself. I think that it does take a lot of skill to operate assisted. Not just anybody can win that category, but it's a different skill than the unassisted folks. So that's the reason why that we really wanted to force the issue and keep the category separate the best way that we could by offering a few extra plaques on the side. And I felt that it's gone pretty well.
Thanks, Dan. Let's have the panelists unmute here. Next, let me introduce the other half of the winning team of WRTC Boston, the man who finished first in the world in the 2020 CQ Worldwide CW contest, making over 11,500 QSOs from TI7W, the long-serving head honcho of the North American QSO Party, representing the great state of Montana, Mr. Chris Hurlbut, KL9A.
Thanks, Bob. And I'm just a CW guy. I don't speak for everybody, but no surprise here. I echo Dan's sentiments with the unassisted versus assisted. It's a totally separate skill set. I don't understand the thought process of taking out the, for lack of a better term, man versus man contesting. You know, I'm better than that guy, he's better than me, because all else being equal, it was us against each other. That's really what I like. If a guy can do 4 radios by himself, I think more power to him. I don't necessarily think assisted follows into that. You know, you're obviously, it's by definition assisted, it's not just you. So I think the combining of categories was a bad decision. I understand from the log checking standpoint, it can be tricky. I totally understand that. I do like the separate unassisted thing that Dan and Axel did. From an NAQP side, of course, we don't have assisted anymore, so there's no combining to be done. It would be an additional or keep it the same. The way it's configured now, the multi-2 category is restricted. The way it's written, multi-2 is definitely what it is, not a single op with assistance. And I'm sure some of the attendees, I know at least one of them has pushed those boundaries and created many emails for me in the past, which is totally fine. But, you know, it's up for debate. I think that adding an assisted category to NAQP is not a bad thing. The unassisted guys like myself can still play. The clubs are the biggest driver of activity, and the clubs want bigger scores, and they guys get bigger scores by using assistance in their limited time frame of operating. You can be on a team and help your club, that helps everyone out. And that is my personal opinion, not that of NCJ or anybody else.
Very good, thank you, Chris. Next hear from the current director of the CQ Worldwide Worldwide DX contest, who placed first in the very first WRTC in Seattle in 1990, but has never made it to Visalia until now. I welcome Mr. John Doerr, K1AR.
Okay. Well, I don't have a whole lot to add to what Chris and Dan said in terms of the pros and cons. I think it's probably pretty well understood. A couple of things I guess I would say, though. You know, there was certainly some surprise and some controversy with regard to this decision to combine the categories in single op. I would point for those who don't know that the decision was not done in some smoke-filled room somewhere by AA3B by himself, and in fact, there was a consultation with other members of the CQ contest committee outside of the committee. So, you know, some of the feeling unilateral, you know, sort of single decisions is simply not true. But nevertheless, not everybody obviously met with it. Interestingly, despite it all, the contest had, albeit under COVID conditions, but record numbers of logs submitted and record numbers of QSOs being made, and life went on. So that's, I suppose, the good news. I would add, a lot of people are wondering, so now that the WPX is what's going to happen the worldwide? And the short answer is, and I actually think said this in the CW results, for the time being, I don't see that change happening in the worldwide. I think it's fair that not all contests are created equal. The impact of combining the categories in the WPX is arguably not the same as what might happen if you did it in the worldwide or a similar kind of contest. From my point of view, at least for the foreseeable future, I envision the two categories being separate in the worldwide too, and it's just something we're going to continue to monitor, and I'll continue to keep my folks who watch out for my well-being in place should change, because I have a feeling if I did make the change, it probably would not be would not be received in the contest community. So that's where the worldwide stands, and that's where I stand.
Thanks. Thanks, John. Your audio is breaking up a bit, so you may need to disable video and just stick with audio if your upload speed's got a problem there. Finally, let's hear from the host and builder of the largest multi-multi in W9 land that I know about, and the current chairman of the ARRL Contest Advisory Committee, the Flex Radio fanatic himself, Mr. Craig Thompson, K9CT.
Thanks, Bob. You know, I operate both assisted and assisted, and I think that people enjoy both. But when you keep in mind that CW and RIDI are already half assisted with all the skimmers, I think that, and if you don't believe how many people will call you in an NAQP after you call CQ on CW or RIDI, it's always surprising if you've been just running guys and then call CQ. So that's just something to think about. And I think this might be a generational change that maybe 10 years from now, we might be looking at this a little differently. It seems the reaction to any contesting change that's being considered is protection of the way they've been doing it for a long time, protection of the records, and the way it's been for a long time. So I think NAQP, I think the added category of assistants, instead of going to multi-2 and lopping them together, would be beneficial. But other than that, I think there's just always resistance to change. And I see we saw that with WPX.
Thanks. So has there been anything brought before the CAC regarding combining categories in ARRL contests, such as IARU or?
No, not specifically that issue. We've talked about unlimited in reference to some other things that I'll be glad to talk about later. But okay. Expansion of unlimited.
Expansion of unlimited versus eliminating single op unassisted. Right. Okay. All right. This went on a little longer than I wanted, so I'm just going to do a quick exit question poll here of the team. It's time to get out. The two-part exit question is, should the unassisted and a category be, that's the first part, should the unassisted category be restored to the WPX contest, and should the assisted category be added to the NAQP? N6MJ.
I believe for the first part, yes, it should be restored. And I'm kind of on the fence about NAQP, but I can see the value of it there. I don't know. I guess I'll say yes to NAQP.
Okay, KL9A.
I'm going to say yes to both.
K1AR.
It should not be restored, and I'm on the East Coast, so the NAQP doesn't matter.
You got to answer that one, John. Give me a yes or no on NAQP.
No, I don't think so.
Pardon me?
No on NAQP.
No on NAQP. So you're two. K9CT.
I think I'd leave WPX with the way that it is combined now and add the category for NAQP.
The answer is yes and yes. All right. Issue 2, IARU multiplier magnifier. In the IARU contest, member society headquarters stations count as separate multipliers on each band. So with many headquarters stations in Europe, this gives an easy 40 or 50 multiplier advantage to any serious station with good propagation to Europe. Some propose that each QSO with a headquarters station should simply count as one multiplier for the entire contest, instead of one multiplier per band. Is that a good idea or a bad idea as a way to make things a bit more fair in the IARU contest? I ask you, KL9A.
I'm going to be extremely divisive here and say there's no way that's a good idea. And I understand the hypocrisy coming from the guy that just suggested assistance in NAQP, but that's going to make IARU super boring. You know, we don't want everything to be the same. I need to be able to chase those super weak Europeans on 80 meters from the West Coast to make it interesting. All of the zone multipliers, you're going to run out of those real fast. And yeah, it's Europe centric, but honestly, every contest is. There's nothing wrong with NAQ or IARU as it is now, and encouraging the big multis, the distributed ones from the headquarters. That's cool. I mean, it rallies the troops. It gets guys on. I think that's interesting. So I'm definitely going to say do not change IARU headquarters stations.
K1AR.
Yeah, I don't have any real strong opinions on this, to be honest with you. I think Chris pretty much summarized it, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's not what I'm after, but all right, K9CT.
I'd agree. Leave it alone. I love chasing multipliers, and the more the merrier. And it's just not the same contest between North America and Europe anyhow. So for us to weigh in, we already know the difference. We just try to win here.
And 6MJ.
I 100% agree with Chris. I think IARU is an awesome contest. I love IARU. I think the headquarters stations bring a lot to it. This is coming from the guy that I came in second place last time to a guy in W1, and I'm totally cool with that. I really enjoy the contest. I think it should stay the same. I'm very happy with the way that it is. So I vote there should be no change to IARU.
Well, if you look at the results, it's clear that the East Coast guys are easily getting 40 or 50 more easy multipliers because there's so many stations in Europe. And even though we'll never equal our openings to Europe out here, by the way, Dan, was that second place finish from out here or somewhere else?
Yeah, that was from ND7K in Arizona
Okay.
for the mixed mode.
Mixed mode. So obviously chasing multipliers, I mean, there's just so many more multipliers that are easy for the East Coast to work anyway. But by having it just be IARU zones as the other multiplier, it's a little more fair, a little more flat. You know, it's easy for us to work one QSO in a European multiplier on 40 or 80, but working all the headquarters stations on 80 and 40, very, very difficult. So just to make, there has been a lot of folks who felt that this is just skewed way too much toward the East Coast in terms of advantages. And that's why the proposal is there ahead of us to just let the headquarters stations count once per band instead of on every band. I mean, 160 meter European headquarters stations, there's no way anybody out here is going to work those in the summertime. So that was the point. Does anybody want to comment on that?
Well, they can't work the European ones, or we can't work those, but they're not working the VK and the JA and the, you know, a lot of the other ones too.
But there's so far fewer headquarters stations in those zones. So those zones are easy for us on 4 or 5 bands. But there's, you know, a lot less countries and a lot less headquarters stations out in the Pacific than in Europe. So it's a huge disparity. And that's why this has come up as a suggestion.
I think that's okay.
One quick comment, Bob, if you may.
Yeah.
So basically this year, me and Chris and K7RL and Axel, we all went against each other here on the West Coast. We before the contest even started, we had a group thread going. We weren't concerned with what's happening on the East Coast. That's their own separate. It's not like it's a separate contest, but we know that they're going to work those molds that we're not going to work, and it's totally fine. We had a blast out here on the West Coast with some of the 4 biggest stations that are out there, and yeah, none of us won, but it was a really great time. It was one of the best contest experiences as a single out that I've had, and it was we were just working against each other here in the same basic geographic region. And that's just another way to have fun with the contest. You don't always have to have the chance to win.
All right. I think I know the answer to my exit question here, but it's let's just summarize it for people who came in late. Exit question, yes or no, should the IRU rules be changed to count headquarters stations once per contest instead of once per band? And 6MJ?
Nope.
KL9A,
No.
K1AR,
Negative.
K9CT,
No.
and I say yes. All right. Issue 3, I'm happy I live in a split level head. To compete at the highest level, one must become proficient at operating 2 radios at the same time. Single operator 2 radio, or SO2R. But more recently, more world champions such as N9MJ and KL9A have become proficient at 2B SIQ mode, which stands for 2 bands, synchronized interleaved QSOs. Instead of running stations on one band while hunting for stations on another, the 2B SIQ op runs stations on 2 bands at once, while transmitting only one band at a time. They have achieved peak QSO rates of over 400 QSOs per hour on CW, whereas the top rate using just one radio last year, which was W2GD at P40W, was 276 QSOs per hour using just one radio. 90% of the top 30 single op unassisted all band high power claim scores in the 2020 CQ Worldwide CW contest indicated that they were using SO2R. So clearly SO2R offers a major advantage. So should it be a separate category? And should 2B SIQ operating be somehow restricted or banned? I ask you, K1AR.
Well, let me ambiguity on this. The short answer is no, in my opinion. For starters, at the proliferation of categories, I'm gonna give you a perspective from the worldwide, of course. But if you look at the proliferation of categories that's already taken place in the worldwide, currently there's 179 opportunities to win a plaque in the CQ Worldwide, where we have an operating of $12,000 a year just to deliver awards to the winners of the categories that already exist in the contest. If you look at history, there's been a technology all along. That's a hallmark of contesting, right? And if we started creating categories every time some major thing happened that some people are using or doing that other people are not, instead of having 179 categories, we probably have one for every entrant. And no kidding, during the peak of log checking season, kind of, December through, let's say, March, I probably get 1 to 2 requests for category change every week, literally every week. Or somebody will say, can we create a category for old guys? Can we create one for young people? Can we create one because I have a dog and my friend has a cat? I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but the facts are that creating new categories for things that, like this simply are just another example how technology and frankly creativeness and operating have reached a new level and are good at it, and they deserve to have the results they get. And that's how I stand.
K9CT.
Well, I think 2B SIQ is a really amazing skill, and I'm always impressed with listening to anyone do this. However, most of those operators will admit that they're operating contests that they already know what the exchange is going to be, and they go places where 2 bands are open. Normally, for any normal operator in the middle of the United States, you won't have that opportunity. You won't be calling CQ on 2 bands and getting a run of stations going, with the exception of a few, maybe A, 3B, and a few others that have been able to do that in CWTs every Wednesday. But it's a real tough skill. And I admire, I too, those people have to go to places where they can run on 2 bands, and they have an amazing skill set. I do think that anybody that operates one band, one radio, and one like SL1R, should aspire to do SO2R. And even if the simple operation of running on one band and SNPing on another, because I do believe that it really enhances your scoring ability, and it also improves your operating ability. But most people will make a comment first, become really good at SO1R before you move on to SO2R, because you might regress. And a great way to practice that is CWTs every Wednesday. But I don't think we should have more categories. I think it should be aspirational, that people would want to be able to attain these skills and use them, in those specific instances where it can work.
Well, let's keep in mind that a lot of people think it's unfair. I can't possibly do SO2R. I have an all band vertical or something like that. And so the idea being that it's just difficult to compete with SO2R if you're restricted to SO1R. N6MJ, go ahead.
Yeah, John pretty much summarized how I feel on this issue. Obviously, being one of the ones that does do 2BSIQ quite a bit, both from when I'm operating in ZF and also from W7, it is a skill that brings your score up quite a bit. But I don't think that there should be separate categories. I think, like both John and Craig said, if you have too many categories, it starts to be too much. And I think it's something that people can strive for. They can get better. Start with SO1R, move up to SO2R. That's how I started. I did traditional SO2R for many years, and then many years down the road is when I started doing 2BSIQ, and it's something that I've worked really hard at, and I don't think that it should be a separate category.
How about, instead of a separate category, having an indication in the results, which right now, the only way I could figure out how many guys are operating SO2R was to look at the claim scores on 3830. So should there be a flag column of some kind, an asterisk, an indicator that these stations are SO2R? So the guy who's SO1R has at least can say, okay, well, those guys are SO2R, but I did pretty well as SO1R. KL9A, go ahead.
I'm just hoping this helps my echo a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah, I actually don't mind the classic category. I think it's kind of cool. It's not for me, but I think it's kind of neat. A guy can go down anywhere, let's say the Caribbean with a vertical, and operate 24 hours and hang out on the beach for a while and make some contacts and be competitive. That's kind of cool. The asterisks, yeah, that's fine. I don't think a separate category. I think if you're doing single op, you're single op. 10,000 radios or one. I mean, that's what it is. You want to sort results however you want, I'm all for it. Just don't make the single op everybody, because it just takes away from the single op, the skill set. And one thing that Craig said, which I liked, was aspirational. Not everybody looks at it that way. I think being competitive and being, kind of just an average operator getting on a few times, different set of criteria for what they want to have accomplished. But I think being aspirational is not a bad thing.
Okay. Any other comments from this panel on this one? How did you feel, John, K1AR, about having an indicator in the results of or on the upload form, was I SO2R or not? I can't remember if it's there for CQ Worldwide.
No, it's not. I guess I'm not a super big fan of that, because then the question starts to come, well, what about my favorite thing or my particular kind of operating thing? And
well, this is a big one though.
Well, I understand that. I mean, it's something we could look at, but I guess out of the box, I'm not necessarily in favor of doing that. But I'm not closed-minded to it either, to be honest.
Okay, all right. Exit question: yes or no? To summarize, should SO2R entries be separated into a separate category in the worldwide contest? N6MJ?
No.
KL9A?
No.
K1AR?
No.
K9CT?
No.
The answer is maybe. All right. Issue 4, how low should you go? The general rules for all ARRL contests define low power as 150 watts or less below 30 megahertz and 200 watts on 6 meters. This applies to all ARRL contests, including field day sweepstakes and the IARU and others. Since most modern transceivers output no more than 100 watts, well, there's some exceptions, and almost all non-ARRL contests already define low power as 100 watts or less, should the ARRL finally eliminate this 1.8 dB theoretical advantage given to a few and define low power once and for all as no more than 100 watts, What is the role of the ARRL Contest Advisory Committee on this issue, and how do we find out what the CAC is doing? I ask you, K9CT.
Thank you. Actually, everybody should understand how the process works. And of course, you probably all know that it was interesting last fall that maybe the CAC was being considered to be eliminated, but we actually have quite an active role right now, and we're working on a lot of things. So back to the 100-watt question, we as a CAC met and we made a unanimous recommendation to the Program and Services Committee that all of the ARRL contests be changed to 100 watts. And they had a recent meeting and they voted to approve that. Now the PSC, as we call it, Program and Services Committee, they make the policy decision on behalf of the board at this point. I think they advise the board, the ARRL board, but from that point on, then the people that are on the committee are actually from the headquarters. For instance, W9JJ is a member of that committee. So they voted to recommend the 100 watts, and then after I understand some discussion, decided to try it on the DX contest. So next, and it hasn't been announced, but so it has to be officially announced in the minutes. But the word has it by talking to the chairman of the PSC and our advisor that they're recommending the ARRL DX phone NCW plus the IARU be 100 watts and tried next year, with the idea that the all contests then maybe, depending on the success of that, would be changed. So we'll take half good news on that. We also made another recommendation on another subject, and I don't know how far you want me to go with what other subjects we're considering, but we are also advising about using multiple calls with one station, for instance, remote ham radio stations, any remote stations. Right now, the existing rule is the family rule, which is you can use the same station with 2 calls if your husband and wife or family members want to operate a station in a contest. So rather than have check logs for anybody that operated at a remote station, we are recommending to the ARRL PSC committee that that be allowed in a contest. We're also working on some other things that have to do with streaming. Well, actually several issues. We have a VHF subcommittee. We are addressing a roving issue and I would suggest that you contact your division director and also your CAC rep. They have the language that we're going to be providing. So if you want to have some input on this, please do talk to them. They do have a lot of input.
So let me get this straight. The CAC isn't allowed to bring stuff to the attention of the PSC. They have to wait for the PSC to assign them a task. Is that correct?
No, that's recently been changed. We actually provided about a year ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, a list of things that we think are important. And the PSC then assigned them a number and it made it our, once they do that, then we've been tasked.
Okay.
But we've been told by W7VO, who's the chairman of the PSC, that he has interpreted this, that we can bring things to the PSC. And the power, by the way, is an issue that we brought to them that was not assigned a number.
Yeah. Okay, good. So it is good. It's working sort of the way I think it used to work in the old days. But I'm troubled by the fact that the ARRL board has to vote on the minutia of rule changes. That seems, and that they're only doing it for some contests and not for others. That sounds like it's going to.
Oh, I don't think the board. I think the board has deferred that decision to the PSC now. So
okay.
They just advise the board.
So as ordinary folks should bring their issues to their CAC rep, which they can discover from the ARRL website, and those can then get forwarded up the chain.
Absolutely.
Do they still need to contact the director really on issues like that?
Well, you can, but that'll be immediately sent to the CAC rep. The CAC rep is actually, appointed by the director. So, but I would just look up your CAC rep. He's probably a member of your contest club, and just talk to him. And that's where the issues that we get come from.
Okay, so let me run through the rest of the panel real quick here. Do you think 100 watts should be standardized for all contests, including all ARRL contests and as low power and 6MJ?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with dropping it down to 100 watts. I think that's a smart move. I'm completely for that.
Okay.
And thank you.
KL9A?
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that was an issue. So yeah, sounds great to me.
K1AR?
Yeah, I do. In fact, the worldwide is already at 100 watts. That's our standard. And another driver for this might be also the fact that more and more new radios, that's the power they run. My 7610 runs 100 watts, so I can't run 150 watts, you know, as with a transceiver if I wanted to with that particular radio. So that's, you know, I think a consideration for many.
I'm surprised they're going to let Field Day still use 150 watts this year, and Sweepstakes, which has a very competitive low power category, still use 150 watts. That doesn't seem right to me. Is there any way, Craig, since it seems like Sweepstakes, at least as far in November, that we could get that at least as a trial?
Well, I'm actually spending a lot more time on the phone now and making sure that everyone's aware of the issues personally. And we actually did as part of our new proposal format, we also provide the information, you know, how many radios are sold. They're all 100 watt in essence, in the high 90%. So, you know, no one, for instance, VHF contests, you know, guys will actually try to get that extra dB because it makes a difference. So they'll put on a 500 watt amplifier and say that they're only running 150 watts. Well, almost every one of you know what happens when you do that, especially on sideband. It's not 100 watts. So
I looked up the rule and I was shocked to see that for 2 meters and I think 440, they define low power as 200 watts right now.
Depends on the contest, but
yeah, at least in the VHF ones, which
yes,
I'm not sure my panel is qualified to talk about. All right, I think I can skip the exit question because I think we all agree that 100 watts would go. So let's let the Q&A questions go ahead. The peanut gallery gets to speak here. It's time to take a few Q&A questions from the attendees. Please do use the Q&A button if you haven't done so already. I'll ask John W2GD to give us 3 of the questions and we'll take them in we'll right now in a row, and then we'll go and answer them in some order. Go ahead.
Thanks, John. Here are 3 questions. The first one, is distributed multi-multi a category that should continue once in-person multi-ops resume? Second question, how can the CAC agenda be made more well-known to people, more transparent? And 3, what about the division of multi-op scores by a percentage basis by in ARRL contests versus the percentage basis used by CQ Worldwide?
Very good. Thanks, John. Let's let K9CT go first on the CAC agenda.
Okay, first, all of the CAC members know what our agenda is. We've all of those have been assigned something. So, but we're not allowed to. We're constrained by we can't issue press releases. We can have discussions like this, and you're welcome to speak to any contest group about whatever. But to actually publish and do things outside of trying to influence the board or something like that is probably not a really.
Well, the question is, like, I just heard a rumor that the CAC has been asked to consider moving the start time of the ARRL sweepstakes. I don't know if the rumor's true. Is that true or not? You know, we don't know because there's no CAC official question.
Yes, absolutely. We were discussing it right now. And actually the PSC liked the idea. However, the CAC is not in agreement about it. And we're not going to make a recommendation that we do not have a consensus in the CAC.
But does the CAC solicit comments from the membership?
Yes.
So to do that, we have to know what you want comments about.
Right. And theoretically it's done. For instance, the rover question came up, recommendation. N3BB sent it out to K5TR and several others in his area and got feedback immediately on that.
Okay.
So that's what we do. We try to talk to, like, I talk to Society of Midwest Contesters.
Well, how about a wider audience, like posting to the CQ contest reflector or something to get a discussion going there?
Well, I asked about that even within the CAC and was told maybe that's probably not a good idea.
Maybe not. I can understand. All right, let's tackle the other question. And that was about the distributed multi-multi. As you guys recall, because of COVID, we wanted to discourage, for good reasons, gathering of people in one station. So we allowed for the first time the concept of a distributed multi-multi, where you could sign one call sign, but have the stations physically separated, perhaps linked by internet to share logs and so on. Should we continue that practice, or should we encourage on-site teams as in the past and say that was a one-time thing for COVID and we don't need that until the next pandemic shows up? How about K1AR? You want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, category proliferation to some degree. It's not really truly that definition, but it kind of feels that way a little bit. I think it served its purpose for COVID, right? And mercifully, I think at least in the U.S. and hopefully globally, over the next few months, as the coming months, COVID will be a little bit more in the rearview mirror, and the need for the distribution approach won't be needed. So I'm kind of a fan of it served its purpose. Let's move on.
John, what was the third question again?
We did the division of scores. Did we do that?
Oh, no, we didn't. That's it. Thanks. So I believe in the CQ contest, the club score is contributed as a percentage basis of the operators. So if you have 20% of your operators are in one club, the score, 20% of the multi-multi score can go to that club. Is that right, John?
Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got two Johns here. And in ARRL, though, I believe that the rule is something like 2/3 of the members of the operators must be present, and then the entire score goes to one and only one club. Can someone?
50%, John.
It's now 50%.
It's 50%.
Yeah,
Okay.
but CAC actually recommended it be distributed very similar to CQ Worldwide, and it was approved by PSC and tasked to the ARRL headquarters staff.
Oh, that's news. That's good. Because I think uniformity, like we were talking, 100 watts for all contests. And I mean, yes, every contest they can have different rules and different exchanges, but common things like what's low power and how do you distribute teams, club scores or at a multi, that should be kind of uniform. So
yeah,
as much as possible, at least for the contests that we in this country can control. Okay, GD, let's have 3 more questions.
Okay. For the new contesters, would each operator provide an operating tip on how to improve their, a newcomer's operating skills? Number 1. I think that, why don't you ask that one? I'll come up with some more.
Okay, that is an excellent one. Let's start with KL9A. What operating tip was one of the first ones that you learned that you were doing it initially and that you said, oh, that's not right, let me fix this?
Well, the biggest thing I can suggest to anyone is to operate side by side with somebody in a multi-op that knows what they're doing. That's going to be more knowledge in 48 hours than you'll ever get by yourself. And I might add, don't do it remotely. You need physically next to them doing it.
That's a little hard for the newcomer because they're not usually invited to multi-multis. But field day would be an opportunity where they could do something like that for sure.
Either that or invite guys to your multi-multis.
Let's see, Dan, what did you learn as a young kid that was a tip that you would pass on to others that are just getting started?
I mean, it's real simple. It's just basically just get on the air. Even not during contest times, get on the air, work guys on CW, rag chew, that kind of a stuff. I think it's a really important skill to have, and you can start at slow speeds and work your way up from there. But just actually getting on the air, and then as far as maybe doing some smaller contests like CWTs, those are always great too. And just practice. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, there's no lesson greater than experience. But if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, like saying, please copy, I copy your number 126, please copy my number 125. That's a habit you should definitely get out of doing. Just give the exchange and learn and listen to some of the top ops like Dan and Chris and John and K1AR and find out how they do it when they need a fill. How do they efficiently ask for a fill if they want to? How do they handle QRM and so on? I guess the number one tip I would give is persistence is essential. Don't give up easy. If you learn deal with QRM and guys who take your frequency, don't get upset about it. Just try to stay calm and carry on. And I mean, little tips like don't send DE in your call sign in CW, just send your call sign. Things like that. Learn the propagation. Try to higher in the band can be, if you're low power, can be a quieter area where you have a better chance of calling CQ. And realize that with skimmers these days, if you call CQ even low power, you're going to get spotted and the multis are going to find you. So don't be hesitant to call CQ if you can. Run if you can, and if you can't get any rate, then start searching and pouncing and tune the bands as fast as you can. John, do we have a couple more?
Oh, we certainly do. Should sideband contests allow self-spotting?
That's a good one.
Okay.
And one more.
And another one is, there's been a discussion of excessive CW bandwidth and other crud, key clicks, causing penalty or disqualification. What is the current status on that issue?
Well, I'll just take the last one quickly. That without really good wideband recordings that show key clicks carefully, and I think everybody deserves at least a warning because things can go bad in everybody's station at least once. But if they repeatedly are having dirty signals, I think it's more of a problem on phone than CW, although clicks can be a problem. It's really up to peer pressure, I think, to tell the operator to literally clean up his act. As far as sideband self-spotting, that's a point I want to make, and I'll let the panel go for it. There on CW and RIDI, the skimmers automatically spot everybody. And so if you call CQ and you do it properly, you're going to get spotted if you're not connected to the dummy load. But on phone, there's all human spots. There's no automated skimmer yet, maybe someday. I think it's far off. It's pretty hard to get a pileup going. And boy, you sure know when you do get spotted because the rate just jumps. So what about allowing self-spotting on sideband, or these days even on CW, since you're getting spotted anyway? Should we start allowing that kind of practice? Obviously, it's hard to enforce. K1AR, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of self-spotting, for single ups. And you're talking to somebody who has a group of folks who spend a lot of energy in the worldwide finding people who do it against the rules as they currently exist today. I mean, you can do a lot with IP addressing stuff and looking at logs and things like that. So sadly, we probably spend way too high a percentage of our time and resource to catch folks who do it. There's also a group of people who don't understand that they're not allowed to do it because they're just casual operators. They think it's okay, and
they're used to chat rooms from DXing.
Yeah. So, but the trend, at least in the worldwide, is definitely moving away from. Basically the word is out that the sheriff's in town, and that we're looking hard at this stuff and we're taking action. I also would comment on the signal thing in a similar way with all the SDR technology that we have access to, at least in our world. It's pretty easy to come up with examples where this kind of problem exists, and I have sent warnings out. I haven't disqualified anybody, but it's we've been on the edge with a couple folks, and again, I think with some reasonable punitive action against some people, the word will get out again, the sheriff's in town, and a lot of these problems diminish as a result of the attention we give to them. This is human nature.
So just to be clear, if I'm doing 2BSIQ, it's not considered self-spotting for me to say I'm also on 14.028 or whatever if I'm on 15. That's not considered self-spotting as long as I'm not using a spotting network. I'm just announcing it on the air, right?
Well, as the rule's written, yeah.
You got to change the rule.
No,
It's very
No.
common on RIDI, for example. RIDI contesters
yeah.
have it as part of their exchange. We're also on this frequency. And of course, multis are always passing stations at other frequencies along. Okay.
Exactly.
We have a little more time for maybe one or two more questions. Anything, John?
Should stations operating on the band edge, like 40 meters, you're on, what is it, 71, 24 or 25, be disqualified?
Well, if you're LSB and you're on 7125, then I think you're violating FCC regulations. If you're on USB and you're on the bottom of the phone band on 20 meters, then you're probably okay. So yes, if you're a VE and you're allowed to operate there, of course, there's no issue. But if you're a W operating there and especially if you're competing at the highest levels, I think you should be eligible to be disqualified for taking advantage of that channel 1, so to speak, when your signal is clearly below the band edge. Anyone else want to comment on that?
It's something again that we spend a fair bit of energy looking at in the worldwide. And I don't want to make this a worldwide forum here. I'm just telling you what we do, but we're not particularly interested for the one-off situations because everybody, including me, has made the mistake of calling somebody out of band or out of whatever, right? It's really the systemic cases. If we see a log where somebody's been running on 14, 340, anyway, the high end of 20, let's say, for an hour, we'll remove those contacts. We won't necessarily disqualify them, and they'll also get a warning. So, that kind of stuff, more often than not, it's just sloppy behavior and or lack of being informed technically. You'd be amazed, as you might imagine, the number of people that scream and yell at you when you're operating on 150.6, right? I can hear your sideband all the way down to 148, and those kinds of things. So it's complicated.
Okay, predictions time. Predictions, N6MJ.
Oh, okay. So my prediction is, and this is probably not super surprising, but my prediction is that the Secure Worldwide CW QSO record within the next 2 years is going to be above 13,000 Qs. We're seeing a lot.
Predictions, KL9A.
Okay, prediction, no longer will it take you 20 or 30 years to operate from all zones in CQ Worldwide, thanks to Starlink and autonomous remote locations in every zone. Therefore, all zones and all mults will be available to everyone all the time. So the winners will have the most QSOs only. Predictions,
K1AR.
A lot of people think that contesting is aging out, and I have a feeling that contesting really reflects the reality of ham radio in general, and that the secret to the future of contesting is not so much getting people into contesting, but getting people into ham radio, and the same percentage of people who then join contesting will continue to join contesting. I want to say just quickly that if you look at some of the things that people are trying to do with youth right now, I got some stats that maybe you guys don't know about real quick, but the efforts that W2RE are doing with his youth program are indeed impressive in the sense that he's providing access now to over 500 kids who now have the ability to operate, reasonable contest stations that we never would have had access to when we were kids. And he's getting about 100 a month that are joining ranks with him. The 9A station in Croatia that they have put together is operating 20 hours a day, he says, with kids from all around the world. So to me, that's the future of ham radio, and thus the future of contesting.
Okay, just a little time left. Predictions, K9CT.
Yes, ham radio contesting will be discovered as a solution to world peace. No one had realized that there was a place where everyone got along and spoke one language until N6MJ and KL9A were discovered on TikTok doing an SB to B SIQ dance.
Very good.
There you have it.
All right, W2GD prediction.
Prediction. Before the year 2030, WRTC will take place in Asia.
Good prediction. And finally, I predict that thanks to increasing sunspots, that N6MJ and KL9A will both log over 12,000 QSOs in CQ Worldwide CW, but they'll end up short of 12,000 after log checking.
Ooh.
Visalia Group. The opinions expressed are solely those of the participants and do not represent the opinions of this station, the ARRL, the CQ Contest Committee, or the IDXC. For a transcript, send $500 to N6TV, San Jose, California.
Well, thank you, guys.
It doesn't get much better. Guys are great. Bob, did you just disappear that fast? You're still there somewhere. Okay.
He's
I
collecting
said
his
bye-bye.
money.
There you are. Okay. Thought you were heading out to the IRS already.
No, he takes Bitcoin.
You got a couple minutes left. If there are any last minute questions that you guys want, we know.
Oh, you told me to stop at one.
I know you did a great job, but if there's anything else, GD, that you see? Just want anything quick or not?
I covered everything that was posted.
Okay, very
Good
good.
job, John. Thank you.
There was a CQP question which I did not ask.
Yeah, we're going to leave it to the CQP team to do.
That's right.
Smart.
And that question gets asked
Every year, about every
and
6
always
months.
has the same answer,
Right.
which
All
is
right.
Yeah, I did have one quick interesting stat that I pulled out of the archives here that was interesting to me anyway, and that is, you talk about the small guy in contesting. In the worldwide CW last year, there were 2,200 logs that had less than 100 QSOs, or about 25% of the people that submitted a log only made 100 contacts. And that to me is pretty significant about, the number of small pistol little guys that get in this game, 25%.
Yeah, well, that's impressive.
Thank God.
We need them all.
That's right.
All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Hang around if you want. We're going to take a little break, and then before you know it, thank you guys. You did a fantastic job today.